Let's begin. My name is Daniel Ross. I was 32 when everything collapsed, when I lost the woman I loved, the child I never got to meet, and the illusion that life owed me something just because I was good. Before all that, I lived in a mid-sized Pennsylvania town called Brook Hollow, where everyone either knew you or pretended to. I wasn't popular, but I was content. I worked in network systems for a major telecom company and traveled often. The job paid well, kept me busy, and gave me just enough distance from everything I didn't want to face. At home, I had her Emily. God, Emily. We met in college. She was the kind of girl who didn't just walk into a room. She redefined its gravity. She was fearless, sharp, radiant. When she laughed, it cracked through my tension like thunder on a muggy night. We moved in together at 21, married at 24, and by 26, we were painting a nursery for a baby boy we couldn't wait to meet. That year, everything was golden, until it wasn't. Emily worked in archival logistics. Not glamorous, but steady. Her office was in one of those old industrial buildings that still reeked of the 1960s. It was meant to be temporary, until corporate cutbacks halted renovations. 5 weeks before her maternity leave was supposed to start, I got the call. A collapsed storage mezzanine. Structural failure. Rusted bolts. She and the baby, gone before they hit the floor. There's no word for what that kind of silence does to a man. The legal team offered hush money. I called it what it was, blood payment. I wanted them to rot. I made it my mission. I campaigned, pulled records, fought the PR teams. It took nearly 4 years, but I buried their names in legal hell. Some were jailed, others bankrupt, but nothing brought Emily back. The nursery stayed empty, and I stayed hollow. The grief changed me, slowly, cruelly. My mother moved in to help me function, cooked, cleaned, reminded me to sleep. I survived in routines. Work became my anchor, and I convinced my company to give me a dual-location contract. 2 weeks in the city, one in Brook Hollow. I bought a second home there. Quiet, gated, forgettable. The kind of house where you go to forget the world. I never expected to meet Giih Morato at a branch meeting. It was Harry, the local director, who introduced us. We were at a Friday mixer. Nothing fancy, just a few coworkers and drinks. I'd known Harry since middle school. Always had a magnetic energy about him. People gravitated toward him, but I always thought he used charm like a poker chip, spin it when it suited him. Sienna was his new recruit. She just moved from Charleston. Short, sharp brunette bob. Eyes like steel-cut sapphires. Witty, stylish, poised. There was something about her that reminded me of the woman I lost, except colder. More polished. Less warmth, but more fire. I didn't plan on falling for her. I didn't even want to. But Sienna had this disarming way of seeing through me. When she smiled, it was as if she could slice past the surface and find what was still broken underneath. And part of me liked that. We dated for almost 2 years. She moved into my Brook Hollow house. My mother called it a turning point. My in-laws, still grieving Emily, were cautiously supportive. Everyone thought I was healing, but I wasn't. Not really. Not when the signs began. It started with clothes. Men's clothes, not mine. Stuffed behind drawers. They're my cousins, she'd said. He visited unexpectedly. Then came the whispers. Neighbors saying a car was always parked behind my house when I was away. Silver sedan, they said. I knew that car. It was Harry's. When I confronted her, she laughed. Too easily. We sometimes go over work stuff. You know that. I wanted to believe her. I did. I was tired of pain, tired of mourning. So I lied to myself. But the truth was a splinter, and it buried itself deeper every time I left town. The moment of clarity came on a Tuesday. I just finished a deal in Columbus early and caught a surprise flight home. I landed just after 10 p.m., drove the back roads in silence, past blinking yellow lights and sleeping houses. My headlights hit the alley. The silver sedan was there. My hands clenched the wheel. I parked down the street and slipped between the side hedges of my yard. The kitchen lights were on. Inside, their shadows danced. I moved closer, heart thunderous. And there it was, Harry's bareback, Sienna's legs, my kitchen counter, my home. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't barge in and cause a scene. I watched until the fury crawled up my spine and rooted itself in my jaw. I left without them noticing, drove 2 blocks, sat in my car, and stared into the dark for nearly an hour. I thought of Emily, of our son, of the life that was stolen, of how I clawed my way out of grief, only to be betrayed by someone who smiled as she buried another knife in my back. That was the night the old Daniel died, and someone colder took his place. I didn't want justice. I wanted destruction, and I was going to give them both the kind of ending they'd never forget. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my car until dawn bled into the sky, my hands shaking and cold despite the heat. The betrayal ran deep, not just the cheating, but the way they did it. In my home, in my kitchen, in the very place I once promised Emily I'd protect all that we built. But I wouldn't act in anger. That's what they'd expect. Rage, violence, confrontation. I'd give them something else. Fear. The first move was subtle. I called Sienna the next morning, voice steady. "I'm about 10 minutes away," I said. "Wanted to surprise you. Hope that's okay." She stuttered, tried to sound half asleep, gave me some weak excuse. I could hear her rushing to cover the evidence. I pictured Harry scrambling to zip up his pants, fleeing like a thief in the night. When I walked into the house, she greeted me in a silk robe, all smiles and sleepy eyes. "You're early," she said, kissing me on the cheek. I smiled back gently. "I missed you." Later that night, when she fell asleep beside me, I sat in the living room with my laptop and notebook. Pages filled with timelines, gaps, questions, passwords she thought I didn't know. Every inconsistency I'd ignored now lit up like a warning flare. I knew I couldn't rely on just instinct. I needed proof, evidence that would hold up if things got messy. I started copying our shared emails, bank activity, even messages where she'd used my credentials to sign off on bills. It wasn't much at first, but it would grow. Enough to raise questions about her character in any future dispute. But Harry was different. I remembered a boxing match night at his place 6 months ago. He'd gone to grab a beer from the fridge and left a duffel bag half open near his couch. Inside was a plastic baggie, white powder. He noticed me looking and snapped it shut like a reflex. "Old vitamins," he muttered. "Not what it looks like." I let it slide. Until now. Now, it was the perfect leverage. Over the next few weeks, I used old telecom contacts in rougher city districts. Quiet favors. Small purchases. I gathered just enough product to simulate a small-time dealer's stash, but packed it like something bigger. I planned every detail. The way I'd bury the stash under his spare tire well. The secondary plant in the closet of his house. Even a few of my personal items. An old watch, an engraved bracelet, to later report stolen. That would tie him directly to the false burglary I'd soon stage at my place. But before I executed any of that, I needed him comfortable. I invited him over for a barbecue one Saturday. Sienna was visiting friends out of town. Perfect timing. I grilled steaks, played music, laughed with him like we were old pals. Every time his drink ran dry, I topped it up. "You're a good guy, Danny," he slurred after his fourth beer. "Sienna's lucky." I smiled. "You're both lucky," I said. "Some guys don't know how good they've got it." He passed out of my guest room. At 2 a.m., I opened his car, lifted the trunk mat, and placed the stash. His duffel bag was still in the back seat. I added 2 small Ziplocs to the inner pouch. Then I walked inside and placed my old watch beneath the driver's seat. When he woke up, I smiled and offered him eggs. "You crashed hard," I said. He laughed, clueless. Phase 1 was complete. Then came the second robbery, my own. I flew to Chicago for a conference. Before leaving, I smashed in the back window of my house, overturned my office furniture, scattered drawers, ripped open files, and removed just the items I had already hidden in Harry's car. I alerted the police while still at the airport. I sounded shaken, confused. By the time I landed, I had missed calls from Sienna, the local police, and my mother. I told Sienna to stay with my parents. "You'll feel safer," I said gently, "just until the locks are fixed." She agreed, nervous, pale. The town was already on edge. There had been 2 other burglaries recently. One of them I'd arranged personally. I knew a guy, Marcus, someone I'd helped once through a shady network issue. He had a record and a taste for fast money. I paid him to hit my parents' house. Sloppy job. Basement only. Take a few antiques. Nothing traceable. He did it perfectly. The day after, I put my arm around Sienna and said, "I'm scared. We need to get you out of here." She looked at me like I was her savior. I smiled. Next, I hired a security company. Installed cameras around the property. High-end stuff. the kind that notified you when the feed was disabled. I learned every setting, every backdoor. Even taught Sienna how to disable the system for privacy when she wanted to, do something personal. She blushed, thought it was for her comfort. No, it was for a trap. I wasn't done. I went to a lawyer in the city, explained my situation in vague terms. He helped me file ownership clarification on the house. All bills under my name, legally isolated, no joint claim possible. And I made sure Rachel's inheritance, what little was left, was firewalled. Everything was being lined up. But before I pulled the trigger, I had to give her one last gift. A vacation. When the email hit my inbox about a promotion back in the city, it felt like fate was handing me the final piece of the puzzle. I accepted without a second thought. By then, the cameras were installed, the stash was planted, the paperwork signed, and Sienna, sweet, unfaithful Sienna, was sleeping beside me, still oblivious. I made one last request to Harry at the office. Hey, can you arrange a week's vacation for Sienna? I want to surprise her. He grinned. You're finally going to propose, huh? Something like that. I replied, barely hiding the smile behind my teeth. I told Sienna I'd booked her a spa retreat, a 5-day luxury escape, fully paid, for her and 2 girlfriends of her choosing. Her eyes lit up like fireworks. Why now? She asked, clinging to me. You deserve it, I said, brushing a hand against her cheek. It's been a hard year, and because I needed you out of the house. The day she left, I carried her suitcase down the porch like a perfect partner, kissed her goodbye, told her I loved her. She whispered it back with a guilty softness. She had no idea what I'd packed in her future. I spent that day clearing out the last threads of our life together. A moving company arrived under the guise of helping me relocate for work, but only my things were headed to my new apartment in the city. Her belongings, carefully packed and labeled, went to a storage unit under her name that she didn't even know existed. By sunset, the Brook Hollow house was an empty shell. Cold, hollow, just like how she'd left me the night I saw her with Harry. But I wasn't done. The next day, I activated the final phase. I called the local police department from a burner phone, using a distorted voice. There's a guy dealing drugs out of his silver sedan near the old Greenwood house. Every Friday night, around 11 p.m., he's got a trunk full of stuff. License plate number is Harry's. I hung up before they could ask questions. I didn't need to say more. The town was already on edge. Burglary, vandalism, now drugs. They'd respond. I waited. 11:08 p.m. The camera feed buzzed on my phone. Harry's car, sliding into the alley behind my house like a rat returning to its hole. Only this time, no Sienna to welcome him. I watched from my car, parked 2 blocks away. The moment was electric. My heart pounded, not from fear, but anticipation. 11:16 p.m. A squad car turned the corner. Then another. Their lights flashed silently at first, then flared red and blue across the street. Harry jumped. The idiot tried to back out of the alley, but they boxed him in fast. I zoomed in on my camera feed as the officers approached. License and registration, sir. Oh, what's going on? Harry mumbled. Open your trunk, please. The feed shook slightly. I imagined the officers' faces as they pulled back the mat and found the packages. The bags. The watch. My God. One officer muttered, pulling out my engraved bracelet. This is a setup. Harry shouted, panic rising. That's not mine. I don't even look the initials. Those belong to a friend. Step out of the vehicle. You don't understand. Daniel Ross is my friend. One officer grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back. You have the right to remain silent. I grinned as they shoved him against the hood. His body tensed, squirming like a fish out of water. He looked around wildly, but I wasn't there to save him. He was cuffed, read his rights, and stuffed into the back seat of the cruiser like a piece of evidence. The alley fell silent once more. Harry's car remained, trunk open like a confession. That night, I opened a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving since Emily's passing. To the traitors, I whispered. 2 days later, the whole town was buzzing. Rumors spread like wildfire. Harry, a drug dealer. No way, he's too clean-cut. But the cops found stolen property and substances in his car. I heard they're linking him to the other break-ins. Even better, I let it slip, very subtly, that I was one of the burglary victims. Weird, right? Who would target my place? I said in passing to a coworker. He gasped. That's nuts, man. You think it's Harry? I shrugged. Don't know. But his car does match what the neighbor described. Just like that, the seed was planted. One more step. I needed to deal with Sienna. Not punish, obliterate. On the final day of her vacation, I blocked her number, deleted every thread, erased her from my socials. My parents were instructed to deny her entry if she showed up. My mother didn't approve. Daniel, this is brutal. She cheated in my home. I said coldly. Don't talk to me about cruel. She never argued again. Sienna flew back a day early. Maybe someone tipped her off. Maybe it was panic. The motion-triggered camera caught her stepping onto the porch, dragging her suitcase, confused. She opened the front door. The video feed caught her going still. She dropped her bags. The living room? Empty. Closets? Empty. Bedroom? Hollow. I watched her pull out her phone. Dial me. Blocked. She tried again. Beep. Aaron. She screamed into the empty room. Where are you? She dialed my mother. My father. She tried Becky, Rachel's best friend. Becky handed her a sealed envelope. Inside, camera footage, printed texts, timelines, and a legal notice. No contact. No claims. Belongings in a storage locker. Sienna collapsed in Becky's doorway. She cried. Screamed. No one offered her a tissue. That night, my inbox filled with unknown numbers. Voicemails. Angry. Desperate. Apologetic. Unstable. You bastard. I didn't mean to hurt you. I miss you. You ruined me. I played them all on mute. Face emotionless. Whiskey in hand. Her voice. It no longer reached me. Sienna kept calling. New numbers every hour. I didn't answer a single one. She showed up at my parents' house, yelling on the porch. My mother didn't flinch. You need to leave. He disappeared, she cried. You raised him. Tell me where he is. My father stood, voice firm. You ruined him. Get off her property. You think I'm a villain? Her voice cracked. He set Harry up. He destroyed everything. We know what you did, my mom said, ice cold. Get out. She tried to plead, then broke. Screaming, crying, storming off. I watched it all from a camera feed. Silent. Detached. A week later, I heard she'd been transferred. Different state, smaller role, less pay. People whispered she ruined Harry's life. Others said she betrayed me and got what she deserved. No one really knew the truth. Harry, still suspended, facing charges. The town believed he was a secret dealer. Even his own parents avoided him. Me? I thrived. New job. City skyline. Silence. And freedom. Weeks passed. I stood on my new balcony, city lights blinking like static in the dark. Sometimes I wondered, would Emily be proud of what I'd done? Would she understand? I didn't know, but I'd done it. I had stripped them both down to the bone. Quietly. Strategically. No fists. No yelling. Just consequences. Sienna tried messaging me from fake accounts. Blocked. Harry tried appealing to mutual friends. No one cared. I walked through my new life untouched. Not by law. Not by guilt. Not by them. And yet, sometimes late at night, I still heard Sienna's voice, shouting into an empty house, begging someone to answer. No one ever would. That was her punishment. And that was my peace.